What happened with the autobiography of a genius?
It's waiting for some other genius to come along and help to put it in shape to be published.
But why you say that?
Why not?
The thing is, when he wrote his biography, it was meant to be autobiography of a genius, right?
I suppose, in the sense that he was a genius, and he was writing his autobiography. Although I have to say, he started too late. He didn't have enough time, so it was really more. I think of it more as a memoir these days than an autobiography.
Mm-hmm. But when you edited, you were the how do you call that, guest editor
of the journal.
Of the journal, and you edited the biography. So
the autobiography.
The autobiography. You had the opportunity to appreciate about the title. So, what made you decide not to call it Autobiography of a Genius?
I don't remember what my process was. I'm not sure that the manuscript I was working with at the time, and there were several different manuscripts, as you know, had that title on the cover page, or if there was a cover page. I just don't remember what my thought processes were. But if I had thought about it, I probably would have used the same title for the cover of the journal that they used, and then I would have put a note in the front of the material itself and indicated what his intended title was, namely Autobiography of a Genius. But I don't remember anymore, it's been 32 years, what my thinking was then.
Do you think that it would be still appropriate to name it Autobiography of a Genius, the whole autobiography?
Well, I think it would be fine if we were confident that was his intended title. I wouldn't have any objection to that.
Mm-hmm. I'm telling this because in one of the manuscripts, he started, one of the manuscripts that was not used for the 1985 edition, in one of the manuscripts, he mentions, he starts saying that, well, one could argue, but why this guy is telling himself that he's a genius, and he's saying that, well, I'm not telling this for me. I think that we have 160 million genius at least in this country. So his idea of genius was not an egocentric idea. Do you buy that?
Yeah, I mean, he liked to say everybody's a genius until proven otherwise. I like that idea. I guess I sort of take that myself with my students. I kind of assume that they're all tops, and then only if they disappoint me do I change my opinion. I mean, for a country with 160 million geniuses, or now 300 million plus geniuses, we're not doing all that well. So I'm not sure that having so many geniuses is a great idea in a political sense. Mm-hmm. Nonetheless, I like the spirit of it. And a genius is really, the meaning is really, it's a spirit. It's a genius is a kind of thing, right? For Aristotle, a gene is a kind. So you think of it as a genius as a kind of spirit.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me change and to finish with that, to get closer to you. So. Where's that? I still have to fight with the machine. Now, Jonathan, how do you explain, let's say, that since your father's death, 1974, then we had your edition done in 1985. How is that so many years later we still have more than 50% of the text of the autobiography that was never published? Why?
I don't know. The text I used was the text we had in our house that my mother must have given to me. So I can't account for the fact that there were lots of pieces missing. I think there was a lot of editorial stuff being done toward the end of his life. And I don't know what his intentions were at the end about that other stuff. But, I think as a matter of historical and scholarly interest, it should be published. The truth is, though, that the period that has come to interest me the most, namely from his arrival in 1925 to when he met my mother in 41, that 15-year period, there's very little material about that. And I don't think there's anything additional, I may be wrong, in stuff that wasn't published. So, of course, it would be good to have everything out and available, but we still have this big gap, which I found somewhat frustrating when I was trying to write my own book. There may be more ways of getting at it, perhaps for the papers of some of the actors he knew in that period that are in private collections that I didn't go so far as to try to find them. But I think we know the broad outlines of his career in the beginning and the last 30 years or so. What we don't know is this very interesting period that you and I have talked about a lot, but between his arrival in New York in the fall of 25, and the beginning of World War II. So that is the most frustrating to me about our lack of knowledge.
But the fact that even the text that you edited, we are not talking about the other manuscripts that are still sleeping in Harvard library, but even that text, most of it was not yet published.
Right.
Why?
Again, I don't have a good explanation. I think the text that I used, everything that I had, I don't think I expurgated or edited very much of it. There were some inappropriate references to living people that I decided to take out because I didn't think they added anything to the story, and my father's judgment toward the end about what he should and shouldn't say wasn't always so good. But I frankly don't remember excising great portions of the text. So I'm not even sure I could recapture exactly what parts of it I used, what manuscript I had at that time. But that's fine, because it means there are people. It would be a shame and if everything had been written about him or all of his work had been published, because this gives other people the chance to dig into it and publish more, which I think extends his influence and his interest in him academically. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm not talking about the part that was out in your text. I'm talking if we take your text, the 85 text, and we analyze the abridged version, and we compare quantitatively,
Yeah.
I will find that more than 50% of the text is still unpublished. So
Good.
it's more of Moreno to discover.
Yeah, that's terrific.
So
That's all good.
anything else? If I leave to you, you will finish the interview very very rapidly. You don't feel comfortable with interviews?
No, I do interviews all the time.
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
Also, there's no problem with that.
No.
Anything
Go to
else?
my website, you'll see a couple of my TV interviews.
And are you happy with the interviews that people are doing with you?
Yes, I think I like even doing interviews better than I like being interviewed. I did an interview that'll be on my website in a couple of weeks with Werner Erhard, the Est founder. That was a lot of fun for me.
So you prefer to be
The interviewer.
in my role,
Yes.
and not in yours?
Yes.
Well, I'm not going to suggest you that we
Reverse
do a
roles.
role reversal.
Because I can't interview you, you're not comfortable.
No, it's not.
Tell me why
No.
you're not comfortable, Sergio, or being interviewed.
I am comfortable
Oh, good.
with being
Then we should
interviewed.
reverse roles.
The thing is that I don't want to take much of your time because you are a very disciplined person. You have many things to do. So you have been
Going to dinner soon. That's important.
well, but in case you have something else to or to invert roles, and do you want me to ask me? Do you want me to interview a short interview? Do you want to reverse roles?
Sure.
So let's reverse roles. Okay.
All right, so Sergio, tell me how you got interested in Moreno, and what is it about him that holds your interest for so long?
Well, I knew Moreno, not personally, because when I knew that psychodrama existed, Moreno was no longer here. It was in the 80s in Brazil. And when I knew psychodrama, it was not on a therapeutic approach. It was the pedagogical approach that was being applied by a Brazilian psychodramatist. So I was immediately interested because we were at that time very, very focused in education on the speech, on the verbal part of the expression. And we were not giving enough attention to the non-verbal, to the corporal, the body language, and to the action.
Yeah.
So when I found that, I was immediately very well attracted. I was, and then I started immediately using that. So, and then, well, Dr. Moreno, I came to know him better when I knew Zerka. It was already in 2008.
Yeah, so pretty late. So what continues to interest you about J.O.? Why J.O.?
First of all, I think that is his way of seeing people at the same level, not giving too much importance to hierarchy. One. Second, action, and not only talk.
Good.
Third is his willingness to help people with something that was not very well accepted, in a very spontaneous manner. Normally people need to have plans, to organize things, to rehearse.
Yeah.
And for him it was a totally different
Right.
way of doing. So, and one of the most difficult things in an interview is to be short. Because when we start talking, sometimes
People lose interest.
it loses interest.
But not this time.
But I'm answering to
Yes,
your
it's good.
question.
So my last question is, you've become an historian, really, and I mean, I think of you an historian, as an historian now, of at least of his work and the time in which he was working, and his influences and so forth. Do you think he'll become more famous? Most people become, of course, less famous as time goes on. Do you think he has a chance? He's never really, in my view, he achieved a certain level of celebrity in the 1950s, early 1960s, and then it declined. So do you think he has a chance to reemerge as a cultural figure even so many years after he's gone, or is it more like the usual pattern?
Look, Jonathan, the more I study him, the more I see how psychodrama is being applied. Even in the psychodramatic community, I don't think that he will be more famous than he is. Mm-hmm. I think that his methods, his techniques, his ideas are more and more used. By the way, this is one of your points in your book, and I agree totally. Yeah. But from a propaganda point of view, from a publicity point of view, a marketing point of view, I don't think that he will be more famous than he was necessarily. And I don't think that it's important neither. It was important for him at a certain time,
Quite.
But now I don't think that the importance is to do a sort of personality, culture of personality of Moreno. I don't think so. Yeah. What I think that it's important, for people who know him and know the methods, not only psychodrama, sociometry also, in different ways, is to apply, and in this sense, Moreno keeps being very, very contemporaneous. And in many ways, he was, although he didn't want to insist that a genius is ahead of time, because he thinks that a genius is precisely someone of his time. I think that in many ways he was far ahead of his time, and unfortunately many people are using his ideas, even his name now, Jacob Levy Moreno, in Facebook, without giving proper credit to the man. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was good.
It was good. More or less, huh?
That was good.
It was good.
It was good.
So have we finished?
I think so.
With that? From a psychodramatic point of view,
that was a good.